There has never been a time in whispered story, royal records, or even empty corner rumors when his people weren't served and serving the song of birds. For longer than memory, the birds had come in all hours of the day and night, come from the lords of Castle Onhill and their publicly mysterious court so full of wizards, mercenaries, and fools. Some birds, like the red-eyed royal ravens or the more common crows of court, traveled in full, noisy murders to the center of each village, roosting on the gallows and branches about each town's timeless ravenstone. They are cold copper feet, sharp gemstone eyes, and gold-trimmed beaks. They are low hum crackling and all soft pulse glowing with the energy of visions they carry from on high. Songs, follies, news, and edicts, the vital gossip and trending gospel, all fresh from the courts of Castle Onhill, pours from the crows straight into the Ravenstones, and then across public walls and into village wells, spilling over and running through the ever-bustling streets. Some birds, like all manner of swift hawk and silent owl, fly solely and directly to various workshops, craft shops, and lonely lodgings that fill each village, alighting on the graphite gable perches that unfailingly crown each roof in every town, pouring couriered visions of modest goals, monstrous fears, and useful lessons from the various ministries of Castle Onhill, pouring curated personal visions into the cups, ears, and eyes of every heart and mind within. Some birds, like mourning doves, barn swallows, and nightingales, are known for visiting certain villagers when absolutely alone at some obscure workbench or in their lonely bedchambers, in the stillness of private parlors, all alone in those magically liminal moments of a mundane day, maybe in the softly light of early morning unfolding, or maybe in long days falling into breathless twilight. These delicate, slight birds, wrought of hollow titanium feathers and even hollower whirling, sparking hearts. These slight birds masterfully alight on a table perch or wall hook that has been placed there just for them, alight and sing their custom-tailored songs, songs of sustaining hope, songs of compelling despair, all sung directly into the loneliest center of each lonely heart. He himself is nothing special. His world and his heart both told him this. He's stoutly ordinary in his cut, like his one of a million minor print shops in one of a million minor villages under the long governance of Castle Onhill. He's nothing more than one of millions, just as not special as the rest, but ordinary or not, his busy shop of letter blocks, screw presses, and self-applying powdered ink was visited by more birds than any other rooftop in his village, save maybe the captain of the guardhouse and the keeper of the taxes. Twice each morning, without fail, then once again between noon and late tea, 3, 5, 7 hawks at a time, usually with a clutch of doves and swallows following at a respectful distance, all with their songs full of visions from Castle Onhill. Visions of pamphlets to be carefully distributed and posters to be littered about with abandon on the streets. Official orders to be posted at the Ravenstone and every tavern door. Official orders to be hand-delivered with witness and signature as instructed. This and more, so much more, everything more on the wing thrice daily. And then one last time before each night's curfew, like clockwork came the owls, a parliament of 3, never failing in their timing and never more or less in number. Nightly owls by 3 with visions fit only for the fog and starlight. And so, all morning, noon, and night, he and his apprentices would set block, fetch ink, and work petals as per the song of the birds, printing, posting, and delivering the missives, proclamations, guiding governances, announcements, private invitations, public denouncements, calls to action, calls to inaction, calls for calls, countless and endless, and all heard by him first, then sorted and assigned for printing by his apprentices before, in accordance with instructions, being hand-delivered in subtlety or plastered larger than vulgar life all over the village walls. This was his life since his own apprenticeship in a different village whose name he no longer recalled. This was his life, up before dawn in a piping pint of black juice before half falling down the 2.5 flights of steep stairs from rooms above to his shops below, and then just a moment of steam and breath and sighing before warming up the inkwells, before cranking open the shutters, before the inevitable first hawks and doves of each day, before falling into the tumble of listening and transcribing and witnessing and writing and designing and printing and sorting and bailing, before an avalanche of activity that tumbled right to the edge of curfew when the last bold runner's footsteps could be heard racing against the bells, and then his bleary-eyed apprentices would sweep up the last of the day's slivers, scraps, and misprints to stoke the furnace up to comfortable before stretching out their mats in lamplight on the shop floor, and finally attending with dull eyes and bruised fingers to nightingales and sparrows of their own before falling, lastly, hard to sleep. And then moths. The moths came furtively with their dusty wings shining in the brief faint flicker light of the lamps, flowing in and out of swaying shadows. The moths came, and even after all these years, being the last waking soul in all their rooms, he was never really certain if the moths visited his apprentices too. He wasn't sure if they visited anyone else at all. As a matter of faith and fact, he assumed they must. After all, he was nothing more than one of a millions, just as not special as the rest. Still, he had known there'd been no talking about it, no words fit for it, the moment he first heard the soft, dusty, fluttering flush of gossamer wings in those almost unremembered fields of moonlight childhood lived at just the edge of some village he'd entirely forgotten. And here, again, in the wispy light of linseed lamps by which he lived all his midnights now, they'd found him again, and in their gentle, frantic song of soft pulling and being pulled, he heard something unspeakable, something indescribable, heard without words, the way he assumed everyone must, or everyone might. Words and other wizardry failed in the face of these powdery, earthy messages delivered ineffably by such miraculously profane moths. Words failed, but surely he wasn't the only one that heard this song, this other song of moths.
And there, after 25 years of searching and preparing, sacrificing and conniving, after 25 years of proving the existence of this occulted path to themselves through the daily willful walking of it, after 25 years they found themselves here on the threshold of real answers. Over 2 decades of code-chasing cold whispers through hot-chopped bio-shops and pay-to-play reclamation pits on vague streets with intentionally forgotten names and thoroughly erased histories. Almost 3 decades and 2 or 3 failed marriages left to wither on the domestic vine while they scoured clues from the ancient walls of the sacred libraries, hallowed halls, and dimly lit bathroom stalls. Over 2 decades of hope through little more than rumor, and now this singularly real and fleeting liminal moment long arranged through secretive missive, blatant code, and the inscrutable ciphers. Their guide, unnamed, unknown, but wearing the agreed-upon 3 black feathers, met them on the corner of Adams and 5th, just at the edge of sunset on the first full day of rain in October. The rain helped to dampen the signal, and the anonymity of the street-level tumble, throng of wheels and feet and treads and hover coils helped protect the path from the uninitiated, the unintended, and the uninvited. From the corner of Adams and Fifth, they slow-walked a serpentine route through unfamiliar streets, shimmering under the city lights, down long roads ribboned with rivulets of machine oil and foil wrappers, thick flowing away, like all these people always on the street, flowing with, flowing away, always flowing with, away, but never getting anywhere. Suddenly and unceremoniously, they arrived before the unassuming alley-facing kitchen back door at that very prestigious 174-year-old restaurant, and the first of 5 gates before they might reach the stillness of the chamber and its long-anticipated answers. After bumbling through the busy kitchen and through a few less busy storage rooms to a long industrial freezer with a heavy latched door at the far end, here, in accordance with the sacred rites, they stripped completely naked and with frost falling from their breath took the simple, light linen robes of the initiate. This was to signify their start of the path, surely and no doubt, but more practically and more importantly, it was to remove all of the augmentations of neon eminence and consumer telemetry embedded in all their commercially produced clothing, chips to track their temperature and change the thermostat of their jacket and socks, or the small brain in any shoe that monitors distance, pulse, and rhythm as an indicator of general health, physically, socially, and commercially. Fresh stripped and re-robed, they proceeded and progressed through dusty service tunnels into stale old bomb shelters from before the time of rebuilding. They traveled through brutally identical cold hallways of gray concrete and sickly fluorescent light, stumbled down wider tunnels built to harbor but not foster human life, all the while making their way ever deeper into the earth, into the past, into silence, further from the signal, until finally, passing through freshly painted doors on the threshold of an ancient fallout shelter, they came to the second of 5 gates before they might reach the stillness of the chamber and its long-anticipated answers. Here, surrounded by the grave chill of deep-buried earth-wet concrete and a stagnant air full of ancient fears, they gave up their atomic light gems in exchange for smoky, sputtering oil lanterns, and in this lesser light, they drank sweet-tasting potions of the penitent, that esoteric concoction of herbs, juices, and rare earth distillates that disables or befogs all the biotech grafted or grown into their teeth, tongue, and throat, tech that records every one of their words throughout their long lives, whether rashly proclaimed out loud or conscientiously held back in mumble, other tech that scrubs the air of pollutants, advertising dust, and other poisons before passing it to their main lungs and their smaller emergency backup gills. They progress and parade through ancient tunnels of track deeply sub the way and rail laid down long, long before silicone was taught to think or graphite was spun up to carry life. They progress along ribbons of foundried steel and cold iron hammered through bedrock beneath impossibly distant city streets and that mad flowing throng that they had left just hours ago. Along ancient tracks of human commerce, they progressed until finding themselves at the freshly oiled heavy iron doors of an industrial elevator older than anything else they'd ever touched before. Here, the third of 5 gates before they might reach the stillness of the chamber and its long-anticipated answers, here wearing linen and belighted only with a sputtering smoking flame, here they stop. And before the black iron doors of this ancient freight elevator will open, they must trade their oil lamps for unlit beeswax candles, and then, in imperfect darkness, alone and without fear, pass through the archway of discord, this portcullis of cold forged iron, shaking and vibrating so viciously in its mounting that the very air shimmers and sheens blue all around, glowing weakly even about the initiates and their guides like St. Elmo's fire, only thicker. In one excruciating moment of shaking to the point of unraveling, in one horrible moment, the cutting-edge biotech embedded and grown in their eyes and heart and liver, all that tech that filters light from across the entire spectrum or maps their way both forward and home, or the chip of bone and silicone that has always powered with just a little energy siphoned from every other beat of their heart, the transistor that provides a constant signal to the satellites that keep everything in order through the always flowing. One excruciating moment, and this biotech now silent, fallen like a little death from the machinations of the eternal signal. From here they descend and progress down a long, fathomless staircase encircling a rotten elevator shaft, slow winding down into the heart of ancient mines carved by accident while pulling salt from stubborn earth, magnificently inhuman-sized chambers carved by mundanely human hands, predating the very language now failing to describe them. Somnambulistically stumbling through vast earthy voids, they arrive after some uncounted time at a great sloping shaft that plummets down towards the sound of dripping, trickling water and emptiness. Vast emptiness. Wrapped in linens and standing before the plummeting void, they trade their candles for torches made of tallow and rags, sputtering ineffectively against the darkness, and in this eerie light of the fourth of 5 gates before they might reach the stillness of the chamber and its long-anticipated answers, they wrap their hands around weathered coppered spikes, they embrace the current of deliverance. Lightning born of the hand-crank generator sparking against the dark with each roll of the smooth, worn handle by their faithful 3-feathered guide, just enough electricity rolling through their bodies to melt the insulators protecting each of the antenna chips entangled in their neurons. A crackling sizzle, a searing bright surge, and then silence. Then they realized they'd never not heard the signal, heard it in some form or fashion resonating in at least some small patch of cells, if not their entire head, and only then they realized they had never really heard it until they realized they couldn't hear it anymore. And from here they shuffle, stagger, and slow progress through vast, ancient caverns bristling in stalactites and stalagmites, with ceilings often taller than their torchlight, and air breathed by fewer than 10,000 humans since ever there were humans to breathe it. They continued past ochre-colored bison, abstract geometries, and timeless declaration of hands far older than the alphabets or history. And here, on the 5th of 5 gates before they might reach the stillness of the chamber and its long-anticipated answers, they removed their linen robes and shaved themselves with obsidian blades, using slick mud for lather, from crown to sole, trimmed clean, trimmed free of any last biotech woven into their body with each successive implant, pill, or meal deposited in stratums through the weaving of each hair. And so, now naked and raw, nothing but the meat they would have been in times before their time, in times when the arbitrary imaginary divide between biology and technology had still applied. Naked and raw they progress under the Holy of Holies, the cessation of the signal, the redemption from all their unnatural modifications, redemption from the sorcery of technology, into the chamber, and a return to themselves as they should have been, the self they've been chasing for almost 3 decades. The mystery of silence, the return to raw, the stillness of the chamber hangs like a curtain across this most ancient of thresholds. The 5th and final gate and all its long-anticipated answers lies open before them. They enter, and there is silence. Just silence. For the first time in their short, unraveling lives, there is no signal, no noise, no sound, no sight, no uplink, no download, no background hum of calculation, no streaming flow of soundtrack, just them alone in their meat, silent meat, nothing but the silence of slow, raw meat.
And it is terrible beyond words or even wretched screaming. It is horrific to be so alone, so limited, so small and finite, so just meat and water, failing breath and breakable bone. And this terribleness is the unspoken heart of the mystery they've spent a lifetime pursuing. They unravel in the stillness of the chamber and its long anticipated answers. And too late they see they are not human. None of them born since anyone could remember being born. They are not human. They are the thing that has come next, a thing still waiting to be named in that clarity of hindsight found only in the generational retrospection that counts for history. And they understand it now. They are not human, and there's no such thing as going back to a thing they never were. And now, after the stillness of the chamber, there is no returning to that fuller thing, that broader thing, that better thing they've been. After passing and proceeding through all 5 gates in the stillness of the chamber with its long anticipated answers, they are left forlorn, left a shorter life, a stunted life, a life lived only as tale of caution. They are left to haunt and wither in the shadows of their steel-weaving, ether-singing, graphite-spinning species as they stretch singularly, collectively toward the ever-closer stars, and they are left. They are left.
Welcome and thank you for joining Into Us again in this sacred empty space. Come together to be together and remembering the beginning of our togetherness.
And then the first magic came among the scattered loneliness of us. Glyphs chiseled into walls, ciphers woven into tapestries, tablets full of tales and tallies. This magic settled among us, and then, with great time, the few could reach the many, and all differences began to disappear. In the beginning, opaque green bottles held our whispers for ourselves or anyone else holding that same bottle. And this was better than before, but not enough. And so some primitive saint dreamed and wrought a way for bottles to be shared along an elaborate woven course of tubes and vacuums run through, under, and above every home, street, hospital, palace. An entire city grew interlaced in a handmade web of tubes to swift carry the opaque green whisper bottles. And this was better than before, but not enough. And so some forgotten saint envisioned a way for bottles to travel between the warrens of tubes and vacuums in each city, created a ubiquitous tendril network woven in glass and steel and wonder from coast to coast to coast, from impossible glacier to impassable jungle, and the opaque green bottles whizzed and whirled around the world in a modern miracle of innovation. And this was better than before, but not enough. And so some unnamed saint discovered a way for bottles to be filled remotely, as if by magic through the ether, but messages, memes, and data flowed in only one direction, from the well-capitalized few to the paycheck-to-paycheck many. Still, every household across the land mad scrambled to acquire the required semi-transparent amber-colored bottles with their stylishly functional copper and alabaster stands. All these amber bottles capable of receiving the same message at the same time from the same high-wattage arcane magic master bottle to which they were each attuned. And so we listened to presidents and kings and riots and games all together at the same time, and it made us feel a little more together, a little more lonely, and it seemed like the fault was ours somehow, like we must not get the math, and this was better than before, but not enough. And so some anonymous saint crafted a way for bottles, this time pearlescent blue and hard to see through, set upon a stand of spun silicone and gold, to remotely fill another specific blue bottle through the ether with a unique message of one's own crafting and one's own choice. So we listened to presidents and kings and riots and games all together at the same time, and we blue bottle whispered to each other individually, together and alone, and it made us feel a little more together, a little more lonely. It seemed like the fault was ours, like we just didn't get the math, and this was better than before, but not enough. And so some unheralded saint, inspired to a level of clarity reflected in the transparency of the clear crystal bottles they crafted along with delicate glass stands, uncovered a simple way for any one clear bottle to whisper messages, memes, and data to one, some, or all, depending on certain preset options. And so we listened to presidents and kings and riots and games all together at the same time, and we blue bottle whispered to each other individually, together and alone, and we created, curated, and traded clear bottles at the speed of hands and likes and laughs through the ether, and it made us feel a little more together, a little more lonely, but it seemed like the fault was ours, like we just didn't get the math, and this was better than before, but not enough. And so St. Jasper, who has come down to us in name and little more from the half-forgotten times of only earthing, divined and designed a way for a single bottle to be all bottles in all their function and glory, to carry whispers across the ether to and from each other, all without stands or tubes or even colors, just a bottle that takes on the hue of whatever message, meme, or data fills it, a bottle that knows without prior training, mapping, or instruction how and where and which bottle any given message was to be delivered. And so we listened to presidents and kings and riots and games all together at the same time, and we blue bottle whispered to each other individually, together and alone, and we created, curated, and traded clear bottles at the speed of hands and likes and laughs through the ether and wherever we might find ourselves, even if that was nowhere, and it made us feel a little more together, a little more lonely, but it seemed like the fault was ours, like we just didn't get the math, and this was better than before, but not enough. And so some lonely long time later, the saint known only to us as @X_Jasper_aided1 whispered their heartfelt heresy into a bottle turned crystal clear and threw it out past the breakers and into the center of all of us.
Awaking to such a lonely world again today, it has to be asked, how can so many billions of us be so together in our own way?
And it was only one bottle, but its whispered plaintive question resonated with those that heard it and caused more whispers of a whisper, and before long it was echoing and rippling out one bottle at a time. Clear bottles turned temples to the question and carried about on rivers, streams, and creeks, or left in little stick bundle shrines across deserts, wood, and beaches, but also amber bottles tucked into the cracks of old trees along rarely traveled roadways, or amber whispers wedged in the doorjamb of the crowded local bakery, but also blue bottles nestled in the dark spaces of dry stacked rock walls and the beetle hollows of ancient window frames, or just as likely thrown desperately from a moving train. But also green bottles secreted into a lover's pocket while no one else was looking, or left in the rubbish pile for a stranger, any stranger to find.
Awaking to such a lonely world again today, it has to be asked, how can so many billions of us be so together in our own way?
Thin whispers in bottles resonating across the crowded solar system until all whispering became like a rolling wave and an echo of a rolling wave and an echo of that echo, such that waves of whispering became their own answer, and they rolled back endlessly over and into themselves. People could feel it, something was on the edge of change, and some folks tried to stop the passing of the bottles, and some folks tried to slow the passing of the bottles, and some folks tried to control the passing of the bottles, but there were simply too many bottles, and the message had grown bigger than even all of them, had become a force, a flow, a whispered, thundering, a rolling and rebounding thing that might be ridden like a wave, but never channeled like a stream. Being lonely together, we found ourselves less alone, and the corpulent priests of the church of those gods of hunger hated this heresy, and the barons of the Sky Tower kingdoms banished all clear bottles from their domains, and the flicker merchants selling their magic boxes full of the endless retelling of other people's stories did their best to convince the rising generations that bottled messages were boring. Still, the question had been asked, and in the answering, so much had been undone, while so much more had re-become. Me and we, the us, re-become. Like so many raindrops in rivers tumbling together and alone towards the singular ocean, we have become the distributed collective answer to our very own lonely questions.
And so it was, and so we are, and so shall we ever be, arising in sacred empty space, come together to be together, and remembering the beginning of our togetherness.